Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to this event jointly presented by the Friends of Native Art and the Bill Holm Center of the Burke Museum. I'd like to begin by reminding everyone that wherever we are in North America, we are on Indigenous land, and in particular, those of us in the Puget Sound region are on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. I'm Bob Moore. I'm president of Friends of Native Art, or FONA, as we generally refer to it. For those of you who heard about this event through the Bill Holm Center and may not be familiar with FONA, we are a group of appreciators and lovers of Indigenous art, mostly in the Puget Sound region, and most of our focus is on the art of the Northwest Coast Indigenous people. We do a lot of joint programs with the Bill Holm Center, but we also do some other programs on our own, sometimes involving what we might refer to as field trips. Some of them are short field trips, like last week we went up to Everett, Washington to see a new totem pole that's going to eventually be shipped up to a museum in Hoona, Alaska. And sometimes our field trips are quite long. So we've done trips up the east side of Vancouver Island into Coast Salish and Kwakwaka'wakw territories there. And we also have done a trip to throughout most of Southeast Alaska, doing a lot of visits to native sites and museums and so forth there. So if you're interested in finding out more about FONA, you can send a request for information to the email address fonaseattle@gmail.com. Now, tonight we're delighted to have a presentation by the renowned Chilkat weaver, Lily Hope. I'll let Bridget Johnson from the Bill Holm Center do a more formal introduction of Lily in a few minutes, but I'd like to make a few comments. Lily last gave a presentation to FONA with her sister Ursula Hudson almost 5 years ago. At that point, Lily was, I think we can say, an up-and-coming Chilkat weaver, as she was working on her very first full-size Chilkat robe at that time. But since then, Lily has become known as one of the outstanding Chilkat weavers working today. And she's working on her third full-size Chilkat robe. During the pandemic, Lily had, is it more than three? Yeah, 4? I'll let Lily clarify that later. During the pandemic, Lily has been especially well known and recognized for her creation of the Chilkat protector mask, and I hope she'll say something about that during her talk. Very recently, and I mean just in the last few weeks, Lily has received a significant grant from the Native Arts and Culture Foundation for mentoring weavers and addressing Indigenous land sovereignty. And just this week, it was announced that she and her sister Ursula Hudson will be featured artists in the 2023 Craft Invitational of the Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian Art Museum. On a personal note, my wife Rita and I were privileged to spend a few days with Lily in Juneau, Alaska last August, while she did some restoration on a Chilkat robe that Rita and I were fortunate to be able to acquire recently. Now, I won't take up more of our limited time, but before Bridget gives Lily a fuller introduction, I would like to turn the virtual podium over to Julie Stein, the Executive Director of the Burke Museum, for a very important announcement.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all here today. There's 101 people here joining us tonight. And it is my special pleasure to make an announcement. Dr. Catherine Katie Bunn-Marcuse has been named the Bill Holm Center Endowed Professor. So let me give you some background. The Bill Holm Center Endowed Professorship was established in 2004 to enhance the university's ability to attract and retain distinguished faculty as professors to the Bill Holm Center. And as you know, the Bill Holm Center was established to continue the work of the now deceased Curator Emeritus and Professor Emeritus of Art History, Bill Holm. The Bill Holm Center has three amazing priorities to promote scholarly research of Native art of the Pacific Northwest, to increase Native and public access to research resources related to this art, and to foster appreciation and understanding of Native art of the Pacific Northwest. So Dr. Bunn-Marcuse was selected for this honor because of her amazing scholarship, publications, curation, and dedication to these goals of the Bill Holm Center. She was recently promoted to associate professor and granted tenure, a requirement of holding this endowed professorship. So Dr. Bunn-Marcuse is now, and I want to count them, there are 5 of them, Curator of Northwest Native Art at the Burke Museum, Director of the Bill Holm Center at the Burke Museum, Associate Professor of Art History and Design, Adjunct Associate Professor of American Indian Studies, and the Bill Holm Center Endowed Professor. So congratulations to Dr. Bunn-Marcuse, who, after Dr. Robin Wright, is the second person to hold this distinguished position. So please join me in acknowledging this huge honor and her wonderful accomplishments. Way to go, Katie.
Thank you, Julie. I very much appreciate this lovely shout out and announcement, particularly to this particular group who have been such fans and supporters of all of the artists and of the Bill Holm Center and of the Burke Museum. So thank you to FONA. And of course, I have to thank Robin Wright, who had the foresight to found the Bill Holm Center, and Bill Holm, who started all of this at the Burke Museum and whose legacy we carry on at the center, and who really understood that artists and the art are at the center of all we do. And so I couldn't be more pleased to have this announced tonight with Lily here, because she's one of my favorite artists to listen to, and she just brings her whole heart into sharing knowledge and just being so generous with everyone who's interested. And that is absolutely smack in the center of the legacy that Bill left us. So thank you, Lily and Julie, and thank you to all of you.
So I give it to Bridget Johnson for the wonderful introduction of Lily Hope.
Thank you, Julie, and yay, Katie. So I'm Bridget Johnson. I'm the Assistant Director of the Bill Holm Center for the Study of Northwest Native Art. And I'm coming to you from Coast Salish territories, and it's very rainy here. We've got an atmospheric river going on, lots of water. And I know we have lots of folks tuning in from all over, so welcome everyone. Before I introduce Lily, I do want to quickly ask that everyone make sure that they're muted during the presentation. And if you want, you can turn your video off during the presentation, and we will save questions for the end. And feel free, if you have questions during the presentation, just to put them right into the chat, and we'll make sure that Lily gets to them at the end. But yes, without further ado, I'm so honored to introduce our speaker this evening, Lily Hope, a Tlingit raven of the Tong clan. Lily is a distinguished artist and community leader, born and raised in Tlingit Ani. She is a Chilkat weaver in the teaching lineage of Jenny Clanault and Clarissa Rosal. Pre-shutdown, Lily taught weaving internationally, and she now teaches virtually on Patreon, holding a bi-weekly space for weavers across the nation to continue studying Raven's Tail and Chilkat techniques. And her finger-twined, adapted formline ceremonial Chilkat dancing blankets take years to complete. They document inheritance, and what weavings record history like a book woven into yarn, and as well as a lineage of weavers, and are the current health crisis we are experiencing, and political issues as well. Lily's also a paper collage artist, a bead worker, and an Indigenous fashion designer. Lily is an enthuser and an advocate for artists and the arts. Her conversations, collaborations, and ideas contribute to lasting support and a rich artistic community for artists in Alaska and beyond. And we're so happy to have you back again, even virtually. Everybody, please welcome Lily Hope.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. Wow. Katie Bunn-Marcuse, it is amazing to know you. The affection and awe of the work that you do is mutual. So thank you for the work you continue to do. I said I wasn't going to get emotional about this. So I will, I will jump right into sharing a little bit more about my work or why I make. I know that we are going to talk about Chilkat weaving present and future. So I'll just let this speak for me for a moment. I weave to bring order to my thoughts, to converge with the realm beyond our seeing eye, and to bring past into present and present into future. I weave because it makes washing the dishes more enjoyable, the diaper changing more delightful, and the spice rack alphabetizing more meaningful. What? You don't alphabetize? When I start my day weaving, I bounce when I walk, sing as I talk, and smile with everything. Weaving Chilkat is like breathing with the universal consciousness. All is well in the world when I'm weaving. I come to my loom and close my eyes. I give thanks for the women who helped me learn, for Jenny, the last master Chilkat weaver who taught my mother. I give thanks for my hands and for the time and space to weave. I sit with this gratitude for some time and smile as I remove the embroidered shawl, protecting my weaving from dust. I place my hands into the warp before finding my weft strands and silently ask Jenny and previous weavers to help guide my hands today. I weave on wooden looms my father cut and sanded, fashioned after Jenny's looms. The header board runs horizontal to the ground and my warp hangs vertically loose. My warp is thigh spun from merino wool and finely split yellow cedar bark. This spinning combination is rough on my hands, yet offers enough structure so I may shape eyes, U-forms, ovoids, and more into my weavings. The cedar bark also keeps the moths away. I don't want to spend a year making something to let moths eat it. My fine weaver strands of merino wool come in traditional black, natural white, and blue and yellow for accent colors. Some days I'm surprised to spend 3 hours at the loom and manage only to get my braids set to start shaping eyes. Other days I fly across U-forms and circles. When my fingers forget how to move through the warp, I throw up my arms and I clear my mind saying, okay, Mama, Jenny, I need your help. I exhale and place my hands back in the warp. Every time, it's as though they were here, working right beside me. That's what art means. It means our teachers don't die. It means the spirit of all things live on in us, in our art. We have a responsibility to honor and carry on the teachings and keep creating, to share our version of spirit with others, so that when we pass, we've left the world more beautiful through our weavings and through a joyful spirit. Lily Hope. Wushkin dain da'at yuchat wasak, yesh nachatsati, dakdain tan ayachat. My Tlingit name is Wushkin dain da'at. I am Raven Dakdain Tan from the Snail House. I'm a Chilkat weaver living in Juneau, Alaska.
Okay, I think I stopped YouTube because it likes to go and do the little like advertisement for the next one. So thanks for tuning in to that. I feel like that gives you a good overview of why I make what I make. I also wanted to share with you real quick a short PowerPoint so you can see other pieces of my work that were not in that. That robe that was in the video is the double raven robe that is now, that's the second one that I just finished in June of 2020, is that correct? Myself and my colleague Ricky Tagaban, also a Chilkat weaver, we finished that. He wove both side panels and I wove the center field of the blanket. We wove side by side on that. So he has joint creative credit to that blanket, the double raven robe, and it lives in California with a private collector. So I wanted to share this with you if I can. Some of you may have seen this before, I apologize, but this is a little bit more about my work currently in the last couple of years. Again, I'm Lily Hope, Wushkindain da'at yuchatu asak wayesh nachatsiti. I'm a Chilkat and Ravenstail weaver, an artist, teacher here in Juneau. This is the homeland of the Tlingit people, the Akwan, and Haida and Tsimshians are our close neighbors. We love to do trade with them and weave blankets with them and sing and dance and celebrate. It is in honor of Clarissa Rizal, my mother and my teacher, that I am here. She was my teacher for over a decade and her teacher, Master Weaver Jenny Clanot. They are why I am presenting to you today. Goodness sheesh for your time. This is not the robe that I was going to share about. This is the lineage robe that lives in the Portland Art Museum. My first robe that my mother helped me secure. If you know Dina Dart, she was pretty key in helping me do this work. And then Mike Morawski stepped in as Dina stepped away. He came up and hand delivered this from Juneau to the Portland Art Museum. It was part of the Interwoven Radiance exhibition in 2018-19, and now lives in incubation at the Portland Art Museum. Go forward. I can't move forward until I move that. Why? Here's the double raven robe that Ricky and I just finished. This is my main work, is doing weaving ceremonial Chilkat dancing blankets. In Tlingit, they're nachain. In Tsimshian, it's gwishalet. And in Haida language, it's nahin. If Evelyn Vanderhoop is here, I wanted to bring that up because we are having this conversation of bringing back those Indigenous words, identifying these ceremonial robes in their homelands, in their home languages, because the Chilkat dancing blanket isn't entirely accurate. So I appreciate that, Evelyn, for the encouragement to move that way. If a collector or museum or clan member wants to acquire one of these, we can count less than 12 Indigenous blanket makers who have woven one and have time to weave another. Our blankets are recording history, clan stories, dreams, and identity. Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian peoples, natives of Alaska, and the Kwakwaka'wakw and Nisga'a of Canada all weave these historical documents. Again, I designed this for a collector in California, carefully not using any clan crests. And yes, the double raven Chilkat blanket woven side by side with my closest weaving colleague, Ricky Tagaban. I have to say that if there are 12 of us or less than 12 of us that are offering these for sale to art collectors and museums, there are at least 6 or 7 who weave these only for family and clan and Indigenous identity, that there's no money exchange, and there's still a very vibrant, although small, vibrant culture of exchange happening, that there are some artists who decide not to use any dollars in the exchange of their blankets and make them primarily for family. So I didn't mean to blow up. I shouldn't say that. I didn't know how far this would go. I wove a mask in March of 2020 and submitted it to the First American Art magazine, thinking it would be part of this show, the Masked Heroes piece that they'd put together both online and then in print later in the year. And then they put this mask on the cover in spring of 2021. And I thought I'd weave 1 or 2 of these. And my son, he's almost 10, he said, I think you should weave 40 masks, Mama. Wouldn't that be so cool? I've woven 25 since April of 2020. If you want to do the math, there are 60 to 60 hours in the making. I have not slept much in the last year and a half. And so grateful that this is helping to get the exposure of Chilkat weaving out there and bringing it in a very contemporary form, that this is obviously not a ceremonial blanket. The Ancestral Indigenous Protectors was, another large part of my work came about by accident with these masked heroes, these Chilkat protector masks. This triptych of masks titled Ancestral Indigenous Protectors speaks to the return of respecting our two-spirit and transgender Native peoples. Only a few generations ago, we knew their important elevated positions in our communities. This third mask is woven using the ancient raven's tail pattern called All Our Ancestors, as a reminder that we are all valuable tribal members, worthy of protection, worthy of having a voice, as all our ancestors intended. These masks live with the Juneau Douglas City Museum and were funded in part by a CARES Act grant, an artist grant through CARES funding. These masks, I hope, will live long after I'm gone. Many museums picked them up. At the beginning of 2020, I was in 3 or 4 collections. I'm now in over 15 museums, and I think I donated 4 or 5 of those 25 masks to various institutions and art collectors. Jeffrey Gibson, if you know that artist, he reached out to me sometime in the middle of last year, and I cried reading that he wanted to buy one of my masks because I had been following him for so long. And artist to artist, I was just like, are you joking me? I can't think of another artist that I would say, thank you for acquiring my work and supporting my family and believing in the work. Yeah, someday we're gonna hang up our masks, right? Until that day, we get to continue to virtually present together. Yeah, so this is a Black Lives Matter armband that I created. One of my dear friends, an artist you may know well as well, great love, Allison Bremner. She's great. She permitted me to adapt her formline power fist. I don't know if any of you got the t-shirt that she did with all the different colors of fists across the black shirt. So in response to, of course, the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others, and the death of our BIPOC people need to end. And allies are urgently needed. This Black Lives Matter Allies armband is intended to be worn by any and all allies of our targeted populations, so that when we are in vulnerable situations and we catch this bright yellow in our peripheral vision, we know that whatever happens, someone will step forward to intervene, video record, speak up for injustice. I adapted this Allison's fist to have only 4 fingers total. You can see the little Berenstain Bears hand, the little thumb is folded over, right? Because we don't weave 5-fingered hands into our Chilkat work. We don't leave a handprint like a clay stamp on a Neanderthal's cave wall. We already know that we were here. We finger twined this. Our hearts went into this. This is enough. It is a gift enough to weave. This is a robe that I'm working on now that you'll get to see behind me up close in a minute, digitized by my sister Ursula Hudson or Kadusne. Look for us at the Renwick Biennial Invitational in 2023. Loving that my sister is, you know, she was just babies, just inches into her first Chilkat or Raven's Tail blanket when we came to the Burke in 2017. And she's now finishing her 4th ensemble. So she's blowing me out of the water. I'm just kidding. She is a woman to follow. If you're on Instagram, go to Kadusne, or Facebook, same Kadusne is her Tlingit name, and it means they are weaving. This is contemporary design. As you can see, it's the diving whale pattern. If you're not familiar, this is one of the most commonly woven Chilkat designs because it's not owned by any clan or nation. Wherever you go, if you live long enough, you will weave a diving whale, this black primary lines. And what's happening here is that my collage work came through in a dream, and this is the collage of a spirit being or an ancestor or a spirit from the other side, pushing their face and hands against the glass here, or against the veil, because we speak about our Chilkat dancing blankets as the veil between worlds. This being might be trapped, might be intentionally here in the veil between worlds, close to us, yet not. Close up of the work in process. Yeah, so the happiest place in my work is sharing and teaching with others. I teach online and hold space for a Weaver community every single Sunday afternoon. Used to be bi-weekly, and just a couple months ago, we started to meet every Sunday. I lead asynchronous video weaving workshops every 3 months for them, anywhere from 60 to 110 videos, like 5 to 10 minutes long. That keeps me motivated to make new work. Before coronavirus, I was teaching 4 to 10 classes per year, anywhere from Whitehorse down into Portland and Colorado. I'm homed in that I'll not be in physical form forever. So I'm seeking out a kind, knowledgeable, virtuous teacher or two to fill my moccasins so this art form survives. And this is another happy place of spending time with your old friends. Speaking of gifts, whenever I can spend time caring for a woven before blanket, I say yes. The precision, love, attention, and that these ancestral weavers gave to the work is tangible in that room and profound. I prefer restoring Chilkat blankets using only the materials that are already present in the work, rather than adding anything new whenever possible. I learn a lot, of course, and I'm grateful to be trusted to care for these old friends. And I always feel like we've met before in some other timeline. Thank you again for listening to my short presentation and getting to know my work. I really want to talk to you about the issues that are up right now for Chilkat weavers, so I'm going to stop this share. And big shout out to my photographer, Sydney Akagi. She's also an up-and-coming weaver. Look for her in the next 3 years at the Renwick. No, I'm just kidding. Who knows where she will be, but she's a fabulous photographer and a really dedicated weaver, very precise in her work, and follow her at Sydney Akagi. Should I switch gears now? Do you have questions that are pressing right this minute, or should I jump right into like where we are going? Where are we going? Yes? Okay. I'm going to take you with me where I'm going. I'm going to take you over here. I think I might have to unplug me, and hopefully I don't, nope, that's not going to work. I'm not going to unplug us. I'm going to extend my cord. Hold on. Technical, get the cord over with the computer. Just kidding. I'm going to set you down for just a moment. I'm going to make sure that we don't lose power here or lose our lights. Plugging you in. All right. Move you over here so you can see this. And then I'm going to move my chair over so I can be by you. Okay. So where are we going? What are we doing? if there's only a dozen of us that do this on the regular, that are making full-size ceremonial dancing robes, what next, right? Why? It's been this way for hundreds of years, right? If you go back to the ethnographic records of Emmons and Shotridge and Jenny Clenott speaking about this in 1986, it's been less than 10 Chilkat blanket makers for hundreds of years, that we've always held this in, there's only a few of us. Why? Who wants to spend 8 weeks preparing to start twining on a blanket and then spend 2,000 to 4,000 hours twining over it, or finger twining over this thing? And if you're not going to spend those 8 weeks preparing all your materials yourself, you're going to spend anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 to start this particular piece of work. That's not some hobby. My sister reached out to me. She was asking me a year ago. She said, I don't understand why more people don't just weave some of these. They're really fun. And I said, do you have $5,000 sitting around to start a project? Like, we could all learn to knit and crochet because we all have $20 for a skein of yarn, but $5,000. And then if you're not working on commission, you're going to spend a year or two of your life making something like this. You got to have a sugar daddy or someone to, you either have to live way below your usual means so that you can spend 2,000 hours on this, or you've got to have somebody else doing all of the work, or you've got to have a patron or a commissioner or an art collector who can support you doing the work. And then you get to experience, watching your child take its first steps and go out into the world, wherever it's going to live in the world, and have its life. So I'm not surprised that there's less than 12 of us that weave the full-size blankets all the time. Again, we can almost double that for people who are weaving them for their own family lineage and their own cultural use, right? When I say there's 10 of us, there's 10 of us who you could like knock on their door and say, can I get on your commission calendar? Can I acquire one of these from you? So I guess I'm not worried about someone coming to take my place. Obviously, my sister, who's almost a decade younger, is going to weave ceremonial robes. I've got a few apprentices in the pike, right? They're coming up the pipe. I feel like the interest is coming back, especially as we step out of we step out of all of these jobs that seem meaningful. As we're in this pandemic, people are realizing what is important: relationships, meaningful work, creative work, right? So I'm hopeful. I'm Lily Hope. I'm hopeful about the future of Chilkat weaving, but we're also going deep into some study of the record of what we used to do, right? So my mother, in the decade that I spent with her, always taught me to dye the bright, bright yellow like this. And I said, well, I want to use the faded yellow that we see in the robes that are 300 years old. And she said, well, if you start with a faded yellow, right, half as bright, in 500 years, this yellow is going to be white. Why would you want to use a naturally dyed yellow that's going to fade back to white in 500 years? And I said, well, I'm going to be long dead in 500 years. Why do I care what the yellow is? Well, we have been doing so much research about the yellows that we have access to in Southeast Alaska, and the yellow that is recorded with Emmons and other ethnographers, like all the little record of Cheryl Samuel writes about it, that wolf moss was the lichen that we were using to dye this yellow. Now we can't get the yellow, this baby, the buttery yellow. We can't get this yellow from wolf moss. We can't get the wolf moss here in Southeast. We have to go down the coast and trade, or go over the mountains of Atlin into Atlin and BC and trade with those who have access to the lichen on the Cascade Mountain Range. So why would we go through all the trouble of using wolf moss to do this dye stuff? Because wolf moss is shelf stable. Once we pick it off the tree or trade for it, we can stick it in a little basket and it'll stay for 20 years and still yield a beautiful yellow. We've been doing all sorts of science experiments. So I'm part of this Chilkat dye working group with Ellen Carley at the Alaska State Museum. We've partnered with chemists down at Portland State University with Tammy Lassiter-Clare and some really great PhD candidates. And we're basically sending, me and like 30 other dyers and weavers, enthusiasts of color, have been dyeing small batches of yarn and sending tiny samples down to Portland State so they can build up a database of color. So they have a database for all the greens and blues we send them. They have a database of, you know, horse-tailed makes this, and this, you know, wolf moss also makes yellow. And we've been finding that the beautiful pink flowers and the lupin and the green leaves of this and that are horsetails, all those things. We think we're going to get some bright green or some magenta out of the shooting stars or the purple lupin. Guess what we get? Yellow, yellow, and more yellow. So we've been sending them lots of samples. It's been a lot of fun. But why? Why are we doing all of this research to find out which colors we can get yellow out of, and why now? And what do we do with it now that we have it? What is the meaning behind having all of this old knowledge being brought back again? It's kind of like our languages being spoken again, that we've got this new generation of Tlingit language speakers, of Haida learners, of Tsimshian language learners, and we're coming back into this ancestral memory of who we are, who we were. My question is, can we know all of these things? Can we know all of these things and recognize that in 50, 100 years, this is going to be pale, and choose now, fully understanding that I could have this yellow or this yellow, and I know where this comes from. I know where I come from. Can I now make a choice to use my language and weave in a bright yellow? That's where I'm at. That's the huge conversation of what does it mean, and where do we go, and do we have to, now that we know, do we have to continue to use the old materials? Which brings us to the other question that is up now. The cedar stands around Juneau are not growing enough coverage, right? We're using cedar in the warps of our blankets. Oh, look, baby socks. The only thing they're good for now, because my 5 children are 4 years and older. So here we are. We've got our warps that we spin our wool and our cedar bark together. And our yellow cedar stands are freezing at the roots. There's not enough ground coverage to insulate all of their roots. And so we're losing entire cedar stands, yellow cedar stands, right? What does that mean if 50 or 100 years from now, we don't have access to yellow cedar? My own children, as they continue to step into weaving Chilkat dancing blankets, may or may not have yellow cedar at their fingertips. What do we do? Do we adapt and use red cedar? Do we try using nettle and see if that offers a nice core? Do we connect with our New Zealand Maori weavers? Do we ask them about flax? Can we grow flax in Alaska? What does it mean if we're losing our yellow cedar? A friend of my sister's down in Colorado said, Indigenous peoples have always been resourceful and adaptive, and we've always known how to take the next right step. Thank you, Elsa and Anna. Just do the next right thing. So what does it mean if we step away from using yellow cedar and we find an alternative to it, as we probably have done with so many other parts of our evolution as a peoples, right? That we find, oh, it's faster to take a boat across the water than to hike for 7 days up over the mountain. We have access to hatchets so that we can chop our wood more efficiently. I mean, like, we have always been innovative, right? And we've always used what is in our own backyards, right? With that, you go north in northern Alaska up into Kotzebue area over here in Kotzebue area, and the houses aren't built of cedar bark, right? They're building sod houses with the dirt over the top because they don't have big trees. So we're always adapting to what we have. If we don't have yellow cedar, what is it going to be? Which rounds us back to merino wool and this resurgence of using mountain goat instead of the merino, as we have been doing for 35 years. What is happening with, I'm part of it. I'm part of asking the questions, why are we using all of this merino? And our ratio of bark to wool is opposite of what it used to be. Why aren't we allowed to hunt goats in the spring? Do you know why? Why can't we just go up and pull enough hair off of all of the bushes around the habitat and use that goat hair instead of killing animals? Do we need to kill the goats? All of these questions, right? So that's where we are in this, like, that's actually the focus of my Native Arts and Cultures Foundation Shift Transforming Indigenous Narratives grant, is looking at all of this. Looking at the cedar bark, the mountain goat, the dyeing. Why are we doing this? What is it? What is it for? Why are we doing it? Do we have to continue to use these old materials if we've spent the last 35 years not using mountain goat? Why now? What is the thing about it? So I don't have all the answers yet, so I'm hoping you're going to ask some more questions. I might pause right there and see what kind of questions you might have for me. What kind of questions do you have? No questions yet. Is there something you want to know that I didn't show you yet?
Use chat.
While we wait for you to type in, I might share with you how these are constructed. Ooh, sorry for the sound of the little thing here. This is a close-up. Hopefully you can see my hands. Again, this is not a traditional Chilkat blanket shape, right? You can see that there's actually an eyebrow happening in here. This is like a huge eyebrow coming through. Traditionally, there would have been an upside down eye in this space and a little like split U curve here. So this is being collaged, but at the very base of what's happening is in Chilkat technique, we're weaving with a 3-strand twine, 3-strand braid that happens. I'm going to take it back for you so you can see this. This black line is actually 3 strands that go along here, and they're following underneath. So I'm going to have this black follow all the way underneath here. And then I've got a 2-strand twine that's moving back and forth here under this space. And I have to fill all of this in before I can fill in the curve over here. I've been trying to figure out which one is the negative space. Do you know which one is the negative space? I know some of you are artists in the art history. Which one is negative? I'm filling the negative space. So basically I'll have to fill in the curve as it becomes this shape, right? So you can see there's like a little arch here. I have to fill that in and then bring the black braid underneath that and fill it in. So I'm going to show you the actual twining that happens here, watch. So look, this is why it takes 2,000 to 4,000 hours to weave a Chilkat dancing blanket, because I'm going behind 2 warps, over 2 warps, behind 2 warps, over 2 warps. That's it. And this is actually fast. My fingers are moving quickly. I'm half as fast as Ricky Tagaban. It is a joy to have him in the studio with me because he keeps me on my toes. He's like, why are you weaving so slow, Lily? I'm like, cause you're not sitting here. Wait, what? Why are you weaving so fast, Ricky? It's like, cause I can. So if someone teaches you to knit and they teach you how to hold your needles correctly, you'll be twice as fast as some other knitters across the way. So this is Jenny's fingering technique where she's holding her hands just this way. So I'm going to show you the 3-strand braid. Hopefully you can see what this is. Oh, good question. I just saw a comment from Violetta. Are men involved with the pattern making? So that's where we are too, is my mother did all of it. She harvested, she gathered, well, she, purchased merino wool. She split the bark herself, cooked it down, split it herself, dyed her yarns, wound her own balls, spun her own warp, designed her own robes, largely from dreams, but also studying all of the old blankets. And she taught me to do the same thing. So I dyed all of these yarns myself. Like that's, other than the natural, of course. And I'm designing my own blankets. Thank goodness my sister is a graphic designer, so she can finesse them so that they don't look like little sketches that I'm doing. So that's how this transparency came about. She digitized it and vectorized it in her way. But yes, traditionally our men, our uncles, brothers, fathers, nephews would be designing for us because they were doing the painted work of formline, correct? And I want to respond to this. Let's see. Yes, so the pattern boards are painted this way. Let me show you. Usually on a nice flat piece of cedar. This is an adapted formline pattern board that my mother designed. So this was her Jenny Weaves an Apprentice. This is Jenny, or symbolic of the teacher with a crown of knowledge in it. Then we've got the raven head here, some filler of some eyes coming across. Then down here, she's got a hand, this little hand here, of course, a thumb and 3 fingers. So it's still that Berenstain Bear's hand. And it is holding the inner space of the teachings and knowledge for the student, who's this smaller being with a little eagle head here. My uncle, Don Morgan, painted this one for me based on a pattern from my mother. This is how we replicate blankets, right? I mean, like this will live long after I'm gone so that my descendants and my students can adapt this as well. Let's see. So yes. And then pattern board traditional use, we would either cut out a little piece of cedar bark that would be this shape, and then take it and hold it up next to the weaving and make it match, right? So, or now we have access to a hem gauge or a tapestry needle, and we can say, okay, I know that I need this much of this shape. I'm going to weave to here on my knuckle, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Also note that the pattern board is bilaterally symmetrical, right? So if we cut it through the center of this nose, I only have 1/2 of the pattern board because I'm going to make this shape on the left side. Then I'm going to go to the far right corner of my blanket and make the exact same thing on the other side. So once I've done one side, I have to go the other way. My key is not to go beyond like 8 rows on one side before I go over to the other side and try to match it. Because once you get finished with this whole shape, you're going to be like, now what did I do? When did I insert that? So try not to do that. Okay. Bridget, if you want to throw out the next question, I'd love to keep answering them.
Yes, no worries. I've been taking notes and like checking off which ones you've answered. So let's see, going back up, someone asked, what does your weaving smell like? And given the intertwining of merino and bark and mountain goat.
Yeah. Mountain goat, once it's been cleaned, is actually quite absent of smell. I mean, nothing more than merino would be. Yeah, so I guess it does have a little bit of cedar smell, but not much because we've cooked this bark for 3 or 4 days to get the sap out of it. So it doesn't have quite the smell of the fresh yellow cedar that, my whole studio smells like cedar bark because I've got 3 totes full of this. I'm like hoarding it, like I'm gonna run out of it in my lifetime, but anyway, I've got lots of cedar, so shh, don't tell anybody. If you need cedar, I have cedar. No, you can tell people. Yeah. So thanks for asking the smell. The wolf moss, this actually has a smell still. It smells a little bit like wolf moss, but it also smells a little bit like human urine. Even after washing it in the ocean, it doesn't go away. So there is that. And I'm not going to eat anything with these fingers after I've touched this. It's fragrant, but only if I really go to it.
We have a question about the mountain goats, if they're endangered or protected.
Good question. Thanks for asking. Right now, mountain goats are neither. They're not endangered or protected. I mean, there is a limit on how many hunting tags are offered through the Department of Fish and Game in Alaska. And it varies on how many goats are alive in that particular region. So there are people whose job it is to go up and count the goats on that particular mountain or in this particular valley. And then they can say, we're going to allow 7 goats to be killed this year. And just because there are 7 tags available doesn't mean 7 people go up and try to get them. And looking at the statistics, it's about 2 out of 3, or about 75% success rate. If you have a hunting tag in your hand, it doesn't mean you're going to get a goat. And one single robe can take anywhere from 5 to 7 hides if you are using just mountain goat in with the cedar, and then also having someone spin your weft yarns for you, which is a whole nother ball of wax of, are you really going to have someone spin this mountain goat to teeny tiny finger and weight yarns and then naturally dye it, or dye it with your acid dyes? Oh, and what if you screw up the color? Yeah, so that's hundreds of hours of mountain goat processing. Except here's one. We found a mill down in Washington State who we sent, and this is for Taniba. Thanks for asking. I saw you ask the question. We found a mill who does a lot of other wool processing. We sent the hair that we had pulled off of the mountain goat hides, like 5 or 6 hides, and we sent it down to her. And she sent me a series of videos and photographs of, basically she took all of the hair that we sent her, put it in this big holding bin, and then it fed through the machines and came back with this beautiful roving that we can spin into our work. The $1,000 that we spent having that processed into roving is likely saving us a good 500 hours of work. 500 hours. I can't even, I mean, even if I was making $10 an hour, that's so much value. So because we have, look, we are innovators, we are adapters, we are traders, right? That is our like MO, right? We are Indigenous peoples looking to survive and live well. If we have access to someone who can process wool for us like that, why would we spend the 500 hours doing it? Because that's 500 more hours. That is a quarter of a Chilkat blanket being woven, or a child-size robe that is being woven for one of my 5 children. I will spend the money to have them do it up. Yes. Do I know how to card things and comb hair? Yes. Is it laborious? Yes. Do I want to be weaving instead? Yes, because I only get 2,000 hours a year, right? What are you going to spend your time on? Thanks for asking.
Let's see. Do many families have their own blankets?
They do. Yes, thanks for asking. That is why I was talking about the way that this robe doesn't have a specific clan crest on it. If you like the Kiksadi, some of them have the frog emerging from the den. It'll be like a circle with this frog coming out of it with the little circles around the circle around the circles, a whole series of circles. There's like, I think we counted 54 circles in the blanket, but there's a frog emerging from this round shape. It's beautiful, but it's Kiksadi and owned by the Kiksadi, and we weavers will not weave a Kiksadi blanket with that particular design unless the Kiksadi asked us to weave it. They authorize it, and they either pay us or do a party and trade us for some other thing, coppers or wool blankets or whatever it is that needs to be changed. There are weavers who weave their own regalia for their families and their clans. That is a thing that happens. I don't believe that it's culturally correct to weave your own clan regalia and then like have a huge party for it and kind of bring it up and dedicate it as ut'u. It is that you weave it for your clan and you gift it within your family. So it's more like under the table, under the radar, and it grows with your children. Yeah. It has to be opposite. So if there's an eagle who wants, like an eagle wolf wants a robe made, they'll come to a raven and say, hey, raven, can you make me one of these? Maybe my weaver and maybe the wolves will weave me a blanket or carve me 40 bracelets up my arm, right? I don't know.
Thank you, Lily. Let's see. Are there any Nahin robes that are asymmetrically woven, and do you think one will be designed in the future?
Ha!
That's from
That's
Paul.
Thanks, Paul. So it's funny that you ask because I have students from British Columbia to Maine, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, and we are all starting child size Chilkat blankets. I haven't seen one that is asymmetrical or like not by like, but well, I shouldn't say that. There are configurative robes where you can see that the wings of the bird are coming up and the bird's head is tilted to one side. So it really does have like a direction or like that it's not cut through the middle and exactly the same with a double head on either side, right? Those exist. There's also one with a huge whale coming off of it. So it is really just the way that we see whales, an adaptation of how we see whales in real life. So that configurative shape. But my weavers, my students, are hoping that they can design a blanket of their own using motifs from the Chilkat tradition, right? So a ghost face in one and an ovoid with an eye in it for another. And then the set of squares with the little circles in it, like iconic imagery from Chilkat blankets. But they want to be able to move them around in their own blanket because there's more than 5 weavers and they don't want to weave exactly the same blanket that I'm weaving. So to that end, to answer Paul's question in a long way, I'm going to start the left side of my weaving with a little set of squares with circles in them. And on the far right side of my weaving, in the very other corner, I'm going to do an ovoid with an eye in it. So it's not going to be symmetrical at all. And then I'm going to drop down and do a set of black eyes coming across here with black with just white braids around. And then I'm going to do some other shape over on the far right side of my, and these are little 30-inch weavings so that each of those students can come away from the work knowing how to make a full-size Chilkat blanket. We're going to do the overlay fringe, we're going to do fringe row twining, we're going to do side braids, all the things. But that'll be the first of its teaching kind, I think, of the asymmetrical kind. Thanks for asking, Paul. It's great. It's already coming.
Okay, let's see. There were a couple of questions about dog hair being used as in Salish weaving, and if there's any, and in which I'll let you answer. Was it dog hair used in Chilkat weaving as it is in Salish weaving?
We haven't found evidence of that. No, it's pretty clear that it's either mountain goat or merino for the last few hundred years.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's see, from the south, from the Navajo Nation, someone from the Navajo Nation asked, can you raise the animals that you use the wool from or domesticate them?
I don't know. From what I understand, mountain goats don't like humans very much. I mean, they'll tolerate us, like they're used to us. Like Mount Juneau is not far from us. There are many hikers that go up the ridge of Mount Juneau, and you can get a few hundred yards from the mountain goats, and they don't freak out and run away. But they're also up on cliffs, right? So they're high above us. They've got their leverage on us. There are a couple of goats that are like in captivity at the Anchorage Zoo, and you can go up and like get close to them. But I don't know who would be corralling the goats. I mean, there have been really extensive studies. Richard Carstensen here in Juneau is actually doing some really intense studies. You can Google him, Carstensen with a C. He's spent the last year plus studying the goats on Mount Juneau and how many there are and where they live and how many, kids they have each year, how many kids survive. There's not really a fence that could hold them in, but what Richard said was that they do have like a very distinct border that they kind of stay in, right? They don't really cross boundaries into the other mountain goats range, right? The range of the other mountain goats. So kind of like other animals, they kind of keep to their own space and don't cover more than like 20 square kilometers. Like if you stood and did the little line, you could be like, oh, there's a 20-kilometer radius that they go around. Is that the correct word? 40-kilometer diameter.
And a few more about the goats I'll have. So there's someone mentioned that the goats here in the Olympics are considered a pest. And so they were mentioning that maybe goats that are killed could be used and processed for you. And down here in Puget Sound region. And then are there heritage hunting protocols or practices today for the mountain goats?
Hey, we would love to acquire any mountain goat guides that you want to send us. We do have a connection actually up in Kodiak. There are a couple guiding companies, and one of them has connected to us down here in Juneau and said, we're not allowed to, we're technically not allowed to sell hides because it is subsistence and, a guided hunt. But if you want to pay the shipping to get hides to you, we can, salt them and send them down to you. So we're not going to process them at all, just send them to you as is. So that's how Ricky and I acquired 5 hides in the last couple of years, but it's not a lot again. So yes, we'd love to acquire hides from you if you are in the mode of killing goats, or people that are going out to do so. And to answer the heritage hunting protocols, Terry Rothkar, former Duck Dainton, Raven's Tail, renowned weaver, really amazing weaver, died the same week as my mother actually. She was well known for, I think she wove like 17 Raven's Tail blankets, the geometric ones, something amazing, 17 or 22, something a lot. But she did a lot of work advocating for subsistence and or cultural use of mountain goat hunting so that they get special allowance. I think they can take 5 goats per year under that umbrella of art making and Indigenous practice. So that's my launching point to see if we can still do that, and if what that looks like for a Native Arts and Cultures Foundation for that grant. I thought, here's one I just learned, and I know we're going a little bit over time, but I just learned that the volume of hair that a mountain goat is acquiring right now for the next 3 weeks, as we can still hunt them, like this is still our hunting window, that is actually the maximum hair they're going to have, even if we were hunting them in April, May. So I thought when I wrote the grant, I was like, oh, we need to be hunting in the spring so that we can get the highest volume of hair for us to not kill as many animals to get the same yield, right? It's not true. It's like late November, they're going to have the bulk of hair that they're going to have because they're another 2,000 feet above sea level here. So we should be killing them right now when their meat tastes good, because it's illegal to leave the meat on the mountain in Alaska. When the meat tastes good and we still get that winter hair, right? Not 2 weeks ago when they're still bulking up, but 3 weeks from now, we should be getting some goats. Want to get your goat? I want to get one. So that's, yeah, thanks for asking that. Heather, I don't know the name of the mill. If you want to email me, lilyhopeweaver@gmail.com, or find me lilyhope.com, I can respond to you outside of this, but I have that somewhere in all my emails. I'd love to share it with you. Yeah.
And I just want to say, you also, you have till 8:30, so.
Oh.
Yeah, no,
Hallelujah.
yeah.
Okay, good. Phew.
Yeah,
Okay.
no rush. This is a really great one. Do blankets come to you in your dreams or from dreaming?
This one did, yes. And I accuse my mother for showing up and saying, "This is your next blanket, dun 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 dun." But also the collage work that I was doing with my Aunt Deanna, who, hey, high five, Aunt Deanna in the house. She and I were doing some collage work for the International Museum of Assemblage and Collage. They do a baker's dozen a couple times a year, and we made 13 collages and sent them down. And it was so fun to take. My Aunt Deanna has vision, just so you know. But we were taking, I don't even have one anymore. I don't have one of my collages that has the pieces we were doing, but I was basically cutting up old blankets and using the primary black lines like this, and then laying blueberries behind it, or laying, saffron behind it and bright yellow flowers. So still in the vein and color scheme of Chilkat, but yeah. The collages that Aunt Deanna was directing me to were much better than the ones I was making myself. She's got vision. So yes, a dream, but also working in that paper collage definitely led to this. And I would say that like more than half of my mother's robes, she wove 11 ceremonial blankets and made over 50 button robes. And so many of those were dream state blankets. Yep.
Thank you. Bob asked that, so he said, I read in Cheryl Samuel's book that the blue dye used in Chilkat robes was extracted from trade bank blankets very early in the history of Chilkat weaving. So hasn't there always been an adaptation to quote unquote non-traditional materials?
Right. Read that again. I'm sorry.
Yes. So I read in Cheryl Samuel's book that the blue dye used in Chilkat robes was extracted from trade blankets very early in the history of Chilkat weaving. So hasn't there always been an adaptation to quote unquote non-traditional materials?
We have always tried to make it easier on ourselves than it was, right? If it, again, that trade of hours of like, are we going to spend 500 hours processing this wool or training our daughters to do it? Or are we going to, climb this cliff and get this blue clay that is this is what we haven't solved, that there's some blue clay somewhere in Canada or Wrangell or somewhere that we can crush up and actually make this beautiful blue, the eggshell blue that are in some of the old blankets. We haven't found anybody who can confirm that this is actually real. So yes, but on that same note, we also tried cutting up a blue trade blanket, a wool blanket, and soaking it in a bucket of pee, and it won't leach the dye out. We can't suck that blue dye out. So whatever that record is, the ethnographic record saying that that's what we did, what did they use? Did they cook it? What was the trick? We haven't figured it out yet. So all the questions bring us more questions, and we don't know. But yes, we definitely have been adapting and innovating and using the things that make our lives more efficient and, the work easier. We've been doing that a very long time. I mean, all of us, not just Indigenous peoples. Yeah, all of us.
Are you also experimenting with mordants as well as dyes?
I'm personally not experimenting with mordant. We've found that using the copper ammonia, I should grab that for you. When this is a bottle of ammonia with the little copper, oh, you can't see it. There's little copper pipe pieces in the bottom. I don't know if you can see through the bottom of that, but this has been sitting here since May 1st of 2021. And that blue liquid is not going to yield a bright cobalt blue. It'll be really slate gray. And then we have to pour apple cider vinegar over the slate gray to make this beautiful seafoam green. So, and that's what I'm weaving in here. Train of thought. What did we do? Dye. So yeah. We have been doing that.
Great. Let's see. Is cedar only incorporated in the warp?
Cedar is only incorporated in the warp, yes. I really wish that you could see this. I really wish you could see this, or touch it rather. I wish you could touch this. There is nothing like it. When I was demonstrating in the museum this summer at the Spirit Wraps Around You Northwest Coast Textiles exhibition, the museum staff said, please don't let anyone touch your weaving. And I couldn't resist offering it and saying, touch this, you have to touch this. Because they didn't want anyone to touch anything else in the exhibition. I said, well, everybody needs to touch this. Anyway, so touch the things.
A few questions about, so how wide is a full-size dancing blanket, and is there a difference between a blanket and a robe?
Aha. Depends on who you're asking about blanket and robe. As you know, Cheryl Samuel talks about the Chilkat dancing blanket. Some want to move away from the blanket as it's not used on a bed, right? We want to differentiate that this is a robe of sorts that you wear on your shoulders rather than draping it on a piece of furniture. Other people want to say that the robe is not correct because it doesn't have sleeves like a bath robe has. So if I'm going to use blanket, I will often say ceremonial dance blanket so that that is differentiated, or I'll say Chilkat robe, and I use them interchangeably. Some people have really strong feelings about one or the other. I'm not one of those. So use both.
Yeah. Katie asked that you talked about the change in ratio of wool to cedar from now into the past, and can you talk more about that?
Yeah, we have all the ideas about that. So if you look closely at the warp here, let me see if I can get a sample here. Pulling you off. This is warp that has been recently spun, and you can see most of it is just wool with a tiny pop of bark happening through it. When you look at the blankets from 100 or more years ago, that ratio is completely turned on its head, and we've got like 80% bark and maybe 20% mountain goat. I think, and we have kind of come to this conclusion, that it was a scarcity issue or an accessibility issue, that it's so much easier to go to a tree and pull off, 11 volumes of this, or 20 times this bark, than it is to go get 7 mountain goat hides. And because before we had access to red heart yarns or other wools, right, we still had to spin our weft yarns out of the mountain goat, which has no bark in it. So I think the mountain goat was reserved for making the weaver strands that are running horizontal and making curves, and the warp was more cedar and less mountain goat, so that we didn't have to spend that much time doing it. We're also pretty sure that it has to do with the cedar bark capes and other cedar regalia and objects, that we were really good at using cedar, and we knew that it could keep bugs away and that kind of things. And the structure that it offers to be able to weave a perfect circle, it's pretty powerful. Yeah. Bark. I mean, mountain goat is still as hard to get. So why? It's because merino wool is so much easier to get than, hiking 6 hours to the trees, pulling for a few hours, scraping off the cambium layer, rolling it up, bringing it home, cooking it for 3 days, all the things. So merino wool is so much easier to get. We can go 80% merino, 20% bark. Super easy.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to use my privilege here to ask a follow-up, which is, how would it feel to weave one that was 80% bark?
Oh, that is on my to-do list. I really want to weave one that is mostly bark. The issue being that it's hard on the hands to spin that. I mean, we still cook the heck out of it, so it is quite soft and supple by the time it's sapless, right? We have to cook all the sap out. But full mountain goat robe is on my list, right? Even if it's 30 inches wide. It's just the feeling, the different feeling. If we could do an experiment and get all of us in a room at some point in the next 5 years, let's get together with a full merino wool blanket and then a fully woven mountain goat blanket, specifically Terry Rothkar's DNA Raven's Tail robe. The difference is the merino draped on your shoulders has this like structure that kind of sits up on your shoulders. It like just has this like, feels very structured like a military jacket even. And when you put a mountain goat ceremonial blanket on your shoulders, the DNA robe by Terry, it drapes over you like this hug and wants to be moved. Like as soon as it's on you, you're like, oh, I have to make this thing come alive. And it's like a second skin. There's a story in the Northwest Coast about the Gunaka date and how he can put the skin of the sea monster on him and then swim into the ocean and bring home whales and seals for his family and everything. That's what putting a mountain goat blanket on feels like, that you are transformed into this other being. It's powerful. It's on my list, weaving a mountain goat one, but thanks, Katie. You also have to flip that ratio and do an 80% bark, 20% goat, and then use all the goat hair for the merino weft yarns. I mean, sorry, for the mountain goat weft yarns. But I'm going to utilize a spinner because I am not a spinner of fingering weight weft yarns. So I'll be sending that down to whoever wants to spin that into Z-twist, because Evelyn weaves Z-twist where she goes under, under, under this way across. And she might be faster than me that way. It is faster to weave that way, from the left side to right side, under, under, under. I know, I see the fiber artists like, oh, I know things. I want to know all the things. This is the kind of stuff. Yep, an artist and a robe weaver could communicate, right? How was, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, how has language revitalization and ethnographic research been useful to your practice and even prior to this grant?
Oh, man. I still have more to go through, but listening to Jenny Clanat, my mother's teacher, speak Tlingit about weaving is, oh man, it really is like returning to those old materials and like hearing her talk about it in Tlingit, even having like a translator speak the English, that original language is just, oh, it's so powerful. I don't know what it is in my DNA, but oftentimes I'll just cry for the first couple of minutes to hear her speak about weaving in Tlingit. Maybe that's the intergenerational trauma, you know, not being like everybody having their grandparents having their mouths washed out with soap for speaking Tlingit, but it's really something. How has language and ethnographic research been useful? I mean, I refer to the ethnographic research a lot. Cheryl Samuel isn't teaching right now. She's still alive, but she's not teaching. And I will share these with you. Actually, these two people are no longer alive, right? This is a very expensive book, The Baskershire of the Tlingit and the Chilkat Blanket by George T. Emmons. I think there's a copy on online for $897. So that's one. That's ethnographic, right? So that's old. This is one that is also out of print. Jenny Weaves an Apprentice by Clarissa Rizal. She self-printed these, 6 different editions. And I refer to this a lot. How has it impacted my work? I had an apprentice the same 2017, 2018. And she and I had been working together for 400 hours already. And she said, gee, you're doing that just like in the book. And I said, which book? She was referring to the Chilkat dancing blanket. And other than doing the side braids, these guys, the braided side braids on a Chilkat blanket, which I also used to help me reset side braids on a recent Chilkat blanket repair that we've referred to today. Other than doing that, I truthfully haven't read this entire book. So if you have read this book, you know lots of things that I don't know, but I also know many, many things that are not in this book. So funny answer. Yeah, truth. Read the book and then ask me all the things and I'll see if I can answer them. Yeah, I might say something the same. Something else that's come up recently is there are really two ways. I kind of referred to this earlier, but Evelyn Vanderhoop and Dorica Jackson. And if you don't know Dorica Jackson as a Chilkat weaver, you're missing out. She is a masterful weaver. Like, I think she's woven 3 or 4, am I correct, in 3 blankets, but the last one took her 16 years to finish because she was taking care of many other things in her life. It is on par with like the Copper's robe or the robes that we like kind of idolize, right? That we're like, oh, those masterful pieces. Like we think in cedar bark, we think about Selena Peratrovich as being like the top tier, like masterful artist. And right now in my generation, there aren't really artists working to that same caliber. I feel like Dorica Jackson is working in that caliber and keeping her students to that caliber of, you're gonna weave with lace weight yarns, and if it doesn't look like a robe that was woven 200 years ago, you're gonna take it back. My sister and I spent some time at the exhibition here in Juneau, The Spirit Wraps Around You, and we walked around and kind of evaluated the different works. And it's true that Clara Benson, Jenny Clenot's teacher, had a mastery of formline, adapted formline, that we're not seeing in Chilkat blanket makers, right? I mean, like, I would say Evelyn and Dorica have that same kind of sense of like, I'm gonna do it and do it right until it's right, like until it looks like it was woven 300 years ago. Like that attention, and like, I'm gonna take it back. I'm gonna take out 6 hours of work if it doesn't look like those 200 years ago blankets. Yeah, so recognizing that Jenny was, my mother's teacher, Jenny Clenot, was working a lot in the production and support of her family, and really cranking pieces out. There was less attention to that precision in her work. If we were going to like hang a Clara Benson and a Jenny Clenot next to each other over and over again, you could say Clara, 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 Clara. Oh yeah, we know which one's Jenny's, just for the masterful braids on Clara Benson's work. Yes, a collaborative edition of Chilkat weaving in our publication future. Who are you, Steve? Email me. What is this? A collaborative edition, huh? Yeah. You're giving me goosebumps, right? Are you talking about over here or over here? Because like the hair is standing on my head. Like Kenton just asked, do I have someone sitting on my right shoulder right now? When this robe is open, my mother is here. Like I have never been more like spooked, but thanks for noticing, because yeah, there is nobody else in this building with me right now. I'm in a studio space, but hey, stop that. Huh. Okay. Woo! The shoulder by the robe. Yeah, right here. Right. Well, this is where the eye is going in. I'm gonna cover this right now because you're really giving me the heebie-jeebies in the best way. Just kidding. Amazing. We're talking about you, Clarissa, and I'm here because of you, and you know it. And yeah, I don't have to question what my life's work is. This is my life's work. I thought I was supposed to be an elementary school teacher, and I was so close to having a degree in a master's in teaching elementary education. And then my mom died, and I was like, oh, I wasn't supposed to be a teacher at all. I'm supposed to be teaching weaving. That's funny. So, you know, when you get an overarching message of like, you're going to be this thing, you say, what kind of that? What kind of teacher am I supposed to be? Let's see. Which peoples have Chilkat blankets as their tradition and which have button blankets? Good question, Joan. I don't know all the people who have button blankets, but it seems that they are very much located in the Northwest Coast. Definitely Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian, Nishka, Kwakwaka'wakw. Who am I missing? Kwakiutl. I think we all have button blankets and Chilkat blankets of the same. That there's the 3 tribes in Southeast Alaska. And then Nishka, Kwakwaka'wakw, Kwakiutl. There's a weaver down in Kwakwaka'wakw country in British Columbia. Mary Ebbets Hunt, she learned to weave from some of us over here or North British Columbia and wove quite a few robes and distinctive in that the curves of her ovoids are very angular. They're almost squarish. Yeah, yeah. Okay, energy, go, 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 go. A good question. Are the Patreon sessions open to non-Indigenous weavers? That brings us kind of to the difficult conversation of, someone asked me recently, well, I'm Irish descent, can I weave a Chilkat blanket? And the short answer is no. You can twine in Chilkat technique. You can learn to braid this way. You can weave a border with some Chilkat motifs in it. You can learn this. And I would encourage you to come to the work with a big heart, with respect, with an understanding that the work that you're learning, if you learn to twine this way, is deeply spiritual. It's rooted in Indigenous bloodlines back hundreds of years. And you can't weave a Chilkat blanket because you're not born of the place, right? You could actually weave a Chilkat blanket. You can. Would I encourage you to do it? No, I wouldn't. Unless you are, here's the thing, unless you are pulling imagery and dream state and ancestral beingness from your own ancestry. Cheryl was weaving at some point when Cheryl was learning this Chilkat form, she wove a Celtic knot and shared that as a little weaving kit to put the identity of peoples across the nation into the work, because this is what they are to us, right? This is our clan history. This is our clan identity. This is our lineage, our historical record. Really, we're weaving history, right? So my encouragement is, sure, come learn how to twine with us, learn how to make the braids, and then go to your ancestry. If you're Scottish, come and weave a shield of your history, right? Use these techniques to share who you are and who you come from, where you're from. And if you really are attached to weaving a small size Chilkat blanket or something Chilkat or a perfect little circle, like this is one of the beginner projects, right? Come and weave one of these and enjoy the satisfaction of weaving a perfect circle, and then let it be that joy, and let it be that I participated in this really hard, intense thing. She even made me spin the warp, and then it took me 40 hours to weave this circle. Come and do that and enjoy that this is a small part of these peoples of the Northwest Coast. And if you want to take it further, do your research, bring in some of your lineage, and let's adapt it to Chilkat form. Because it's all about the appreciation of things, not the appropriation of an Indigenous art form. Thanks for asking the hard questions.
Yeah, I gotta echo what Steve just said. That was a beautiful answer, and I think a great last question as we're down to the end of our time. But thank you so, so much, Lily. This is such a gift to spend this time with you. And if everybody wants, you can unmute and give her an applause or just do the emoji.
Thank you, thank you, yay!
Thank you, thank you.
Yay.
So excellent.
It was wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you for your time.
No. Okay, it's fine.
Thanks for asking all those hard questions.
She's a, she's a
children.
Yeah, she's
I
good.
have five children. Oh, thank you, Taniba. Thank you for being here. Aw.
Yeah.
Taniba and I know each other from the NACF cohort from 2018 when we were both mentor artist fellows, and she was doing Navajo weaving and I was mentoring someone in Chilkat weaving. So high five, and you're so fortunate to have your mama with you. Ah, yeah. Keep doing the beautiful things. And someday I'm gonna come over there and you're gonna weave circles and I'm gonna weave the zigzags on a rigid loom. Cause right, gravity, all the gravity. Can't wait. We actually, someone called me from Santa Fe and said, hey, I found a Navajo weaving with a perfect circle in it. Do you know anyone who taught a Navajo weaver to weave circles? And I said, well, my mom has done a couple exchanges. So she went back to the trading post the next day to purchase the Navajo blanket, and somebody else had already bought it. Sad. So I didn't get to see this circle in the Navajo blanket. Oh, so. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go nerd out with Tani Bud. Navajo country. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. Oh, I didn't give a shout out to Stephanie and Sally Ishikawa and oh my gosh, who else was here that I saw of the apron apprentices from my mom? Stephanie and Sally and oh, they already left. Oh, Joni Zimmerman, high five. I'm sending you the Giving Strength robe. I'm sure you saw it in there. But you guys get to work on the borders for a little while. Thank you, thank you.